It's Hobby Talk with PSA Canada for June 22nd, 2022. First of all, good evening, Brad. How are you?
Good. Good evening. How's your day going today?
It's going all right. I thought the prodigal son was going to return, but he appeared during the countdown and then disappeared. So we'll see. What's that? I
Oh,
guess
there he
we'll
is.
see.
Good, good.
Yeah. So we can see you, Kevin. You're just in the middle of the countdown. So we wanted to make sure we actually finished the countdown before.
No, I couldn't hear you, so I restarted it.
All right. There you go. How's it going this evening?
Good. I just finished like 25 seconds ago what I wanted to get done. So,
Nice. Sounds good. So, kind of playing off what we alluded to. We're going to talk about a couple of little hobby topics here, and then we're also going to talk. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about a couple of recent products, and then I'll have a little bit of fun talking about the greatest Josh Rosen super collection of all time. And I actually found out there is a Josh Rosen super collection, Brad. I have competition.
Okay, good.
They do exist. They do exist. There's one. There's one. As far as I'm aware, there's one. It just makes me laugh, and I'll actually spend a couple minutes talking about this because this has been a very fun project for me, and then I've got a little something special for Kevin that we did on the live stream that was perfect, and it'll play. And yeah, see, I'm bringing it all together, Kevin. Professional. That's how it's done. All right, first comment here was before the show here. Hockey Cardboard says, can we redeem the Eric will pay coupons at the show in Halifax Saturday at any time, anywhere, 24/7, 365. Eric should always pay. Doug here. Good evening, Doug. Good evening, James, and good evening, Jeff. Absolutely. Perfect. What I was going to say was that because it is, and it's funny because I have this on the live stream, and I was joking with the guys. I kept thinking, it's like, this will probably be the weekend a little bit shorter. So last week was almost 5 hours. I'm sitting there like, we always find something to talk about anyway. We're just talking nonsense anyway. It doesn't matter. But it is the quiet time right now because some products are coming out, and that's one of the things I wanted to chat about for a little bit. And we're going to incorporate that a little bit into it as well because at the end of the day, a lot of the grading stuff is pretty straightforward. If there isn't a grading special or anything, let's touch on this one briefly because I do think it's relevant from the perspective of companies trying to do things. We talked about Beckett and his subordinate attempts to rebrand, tried a couple of times, and now CGC has merged with effectively itself, CSG and CGC to merge as CGC, which I talked about it briefly in a video on my channel, and I had no issue with it. I think it was perfectly fine. Like, I like the black label better than the blue one, personally. Some people don't. I know there was some pushback from some of the trading card game, predominantly the Pokemon guys, of losing the subgrades, which I totally get. Change is painful because it's a little bit tricky. The only thing that I think is a little bit, I don't know how it's going to go over long run, is it's tricky effectively changing for the sports card side. In effect, even though this is a very minor change compared to the last one, this is effectively the third different label inside of about a year and a half, 2 years, and that's tricky. So just on the surface, Kevin, any thoughts just on that piece?
I mean, I was surprised to hear it. I heard it was coming before they announced it for a couple of friends. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how. It's definitely not well received from anyone who's TCG related. They're not happy.
Yeah, they were the Wayne's World meme. We fear change.
Well, and realistically, like, they've never had a great label.
No.
But I almost feel like they made it worse. Like, for a long time, they couldn't even center the grade in the actual box, and that was a big issue. Everyone hated that. And then they changed the holders because the holders weren't working, and they were just falling apart and splitting open. And now they're completely. I almost wish they would have changed CSG into the blue label because everyone seemed to start getting used to the blue label, and now they changed it.
Now this is mostly an aesthetic thing. I gotta be honest, the blue label's trash. I as a sports card guy, like if they turn to the blue label, I've advocated for personally as aesthetically for the cards. I like the CSG for like PC cards. And the fact that ComC had the integration that you could push a button and make that happen was handy for me. I actually got a couple of those done that way. I'm not going to spend a dime to change over the labels because the CSG and CGC labels are very similar. They kept kind of the color scheme. But from the TCG side of it, it's a dramatic change. Like it's like a night and day huge change. But Brad, surface level, any thoughts just on rebranding kind of again?
I do give kudos to a company that feels, whatever company in any space, that when something's not working or it's not going their way, to make the change. I feel like sometimes people wait too long to make it. It is 3, but I think they're doing it the right way. And back to what Kevin said is that people don't like it. I feel like you hear from the people that want to vent or want to complain.
True.
I think they're a huge company. They dominate the comic book space. I feel like they're not making these chains without having feedback from their big people, their big submitters, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like it's always like that. It's like, if you have a restaurant and you have reviews, most people that had a great experience don't really leave a review. It's the people that have a negative that always want to leave it. So
The loud minority, yeah.
Yeah, obviously, I think they did their research. Like I said, huge company, dominate the comic book space, so there must be a reason behind it.
Which is why I'm so surprised they changed it, because it was synonymous with their comic book grading, and then they moved away from that.
I think it became so. Just my theory is that I think for them they looked at it from the perspective of they almost ended up having to treat it as two companies, and they realized that as one company they kind of position themselves as a number two, like in terms of volume between the two sides. Whereas PSA, Gemrate breaks it up into two pieces, but PSA takes in 1 million cards a month, give or take. But it was like this, 500,000 TCG and 500,000 sports cards, give or take. It would almost be like taking that and breaking it off into two pieces, even though it was under the same umbrella. So I created this image, I mocked it up, and it even includes one of Brad's boys here. We got his boy Tom. I appreciated the fact they at least had used one of the same cards in the images, so it made it easier for me to put them beside each other, so you can actually see them side by side. So the one on the left is the CGC. That's the new one. The old one is on the other side of it. It's for the sports card guys. It's very similar. Like there's a couple of cosmetic changes in fonts, but it's not like a night and day change. For the TCG side, though, we suddenly went from the blue to this black and white. Like it's that, and you lose the subgrades, and you got rid of the 9.5, and it follows more the SGC grading scale. So that and went from 3 10s to 2. Go ahead, Kevin. Oh, okay, it's taken off. No problem.
So there's two. So now they have 2 10s and a 9. They don't have a 9.5.
That's right. So now the 9.5s become Gem Mint 10s, and then there is a perfect 10. Yeah, I think it's a pristine 10. Sorry, pristine 10. Yeah, and the pristine 10 does look very different. But the Gem Mint 10 is like this. You've seen both versions of Gem Mint 10 directly in front of you, old and new. For the sports card guys, like it's a relatively minor cosmetic difference. And then the scale is the scale they did on their last changeover. So for the sports card side of things, nothing, business as usual outside of the slight label change. So it's less dramatic than last time, which is good. Look, I'm for it because I'm a strong advocate of there being some good competitors. I have no problem with PSA being strong. I'd like one or two of the other competitors to be strong. They'll keep each other honest. That's better for everybody in the long run.
I agree.
So real quick, I'll scroll through a couple here. Green Cardboard, good morning/evening. Absolutely. You as well. Staggy Joel, evening gents. On my sports card show in Halifax. Hopefully my TCG stuff gets put through soon. Sounds good. Thank you for that. Now,
there is lots of. I should mention that. Yeah, there's lots of orders are pumping back. So from the Toronto Expo and anything before it, things are really cruising along. I think coming back tomorrow is probably 5,000-6,000 cards. We'll get those out by the middle of the week. We're not going to update the spreadsheet. Sorry, I'm going to update the spreadsheet tomorrow of everything that's going to arrive tomorrow, but we won't update the full spreadsheet until probably the start to the middle of next week, just with the statuses. It's currently now, there's PSA's site has a little bit of delays when we're going back. It's about a 6, from top to bottom, it's about a 6-hour process to update it. So simply from a time, it's more important for me right now to get the orders all pumped out, work on them this weekend, get them pumped out, get everything. So middle of next week, we'll take a day and we'll get that updated.
Sounds good. Now this will kind of play into what I was saying earlier, and I was invoking Kevin. So on the live stream, I did have a little bit of fun because I was able to because I found an image of the cheese string I'm on, and then I actually showed an image of the package of cheese strings.
Oh my god!
And I think there's a legitimate lawsuit to be had. Like I just died of laughter when I saw it, and I put back to back. I showed them, all right, commit the cheese string oven to memory, and now here's the package of cheese strings, and they're like, what? And it's like, people, Google it. You can't unsee it. Once you see it, you'll know that I speak the truth.
Oh no, it definitely does. It definitely does.
it, Brad, it was one of my favorite things. I was like, it was guys, I told you all. I was way ahead of the curve on this one. All right, Alex here. What's up, everyone? How you guys doing? Doing
Hey,
well.
Alex, how are
Thank
you?
you. Thank you for asking. So let me kind of ask this. Obviously, you did already give an update there. I think you've got I want to say the Halifax show is coming up this weekend or next weekend?
Yeah, this weekend. So we're setting up tomorrow for it, and then full day Saturday, 9 to 3, and then 9 to 3 again on Sunday. So 2 day show, sold out. The usual 175 tables, 65 dealers, and we're ready to rock and roll.
Sounds good. Sounds exciting. I like it. Now
I'm
the
at the CSC show on Sunday.
Oh yes, that's right. They're doing it's the Canada Sports Cars running that one.
Yeah, the TCG show. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious. I'm going to want to report back on that one because because it's TCG only, it's not as interesting for me. But I will be curious how they do because in reality, there's nothing preventing you from having a TCG show segment last time. So I'm like, I feel like you're almost segmenting it unnecessarily. You might as well just take everybody.
I mean,
Is there
TCG people are a little bit of a different breed, so
I guess so.
they like to be special.
Is there rules, Kevin? Like when you're setting up, like is it you're not allowed to have other type of cards besides TCG?
They said no, so we'll see how it goes. There's some big stores in the area that kind of do both.
Right.
So I don't see I don't know if Relics is setting up, but there's ND Sports Cards, which sports cards in the name. I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, I'm just TCG. You know me. I have 11 hockey cards, and that's it. So
Now, is it just TCG or TCG and non-sport?
TCG and non-sports. So
Okay, cool. So you can have Mike Trout and Tom Brady cards. Perfect.
yeah, exactly.
I have a whole showcase full of non-sport.
Yeah.
Always, Brad. Always. You see how I set it up with the question and then drop the hammer. That's how you do it. It's smooth. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate the assist.
I did get an email from PSA actually this week where somehow one of us, could have been me, could have been Kevin, could have been Luke, I'm not exactly sure, but
Okay.
someone sent in an order under the TCG special and it had non-sport cards in it. Okay. And they gave me the full definition breakdown on it. And I was like, oh yeah. And it wasn't a few non-sports. It was like, okay, G.I. Joe is not TCG. Elf cards are not TCG. And it listed all the ones down the list. It was a very, very mixed up order.
So you're saying we can't open up our Pokemon box and get our G.I. Joe? That's no good? No bueno?
No go.
I definitely submitted one sports card on the end of the TCG order at one point. I was like, I'm not doing a one card order. I'm sending it in. If they got something to say, they got something to say.
There you go. Dave, good evening. Absolutely. So kind of in the vein of what I'm talking about, there's a couple of pieces that I've got in the back in my head that we'll chat about. But over the course of it, if you guys want to chat about anything in particular or any topics you'd like to discuss a little bit, feel free. Right now, in the dog days of summer is actually a good time to kind of, broach some of those other topics and some of the fun stuff. We can have some fun with it. So why not? Let's have a little fun with that as well. Now, Dave here says, Brad, do you have a direct Tops account? I don't think you do.
No, so not in Canada, and so AMG does not have a direct. AMG buys direct from Grosvenor Distribution. Mm-hmm. We have two distributors in Canada, Universal Distribution and Grosvenor Distribution. So that's where everything comes from.
Yep, absolutely. So let's since Dave gave a really good segue into it, let's touch on it for a second. So one of the things that came out this week is Fanatics edicts pertaining to some of their the relationship they're going to have with their direct. This is not through distributors, whatever the case is. I know their relationship with distributors are changing a lot. They're starting to drop a lot of them, and that's going to be out of it. It's going to be interesting though to see what the distribution model actually ends up looking like, because Tops / Fanatics. It's not like 80% of the stores were doing direct. It's actually a much smaller percentage. Previously, it was distributors carrying the load. So does that mean they're going to open it up? And this comes on the heels of a lot of things pertaining to Fanatics wanting its braking platform, what that's going to do. eBay breaking down who's going to be able to do braking, that's question. And then the next one that's going to be interesting here is, okay, you want to drop distributors, but then you also want to create this one which is a lot more stringent, including you're not allowed to break online, I think, is one of the terms, if memory serves me the way it's phrased. And then also, you're not allowed to sell online, which
Yeah,
is one of the rules.
you're allowed to do breaks, but everybody who buys a spot has to be in the store.
Yes. Yeah. Which is very, a lot more draconian. It's a lot more, on top of it. I can make a pitch for it either way, but just surface level. So, Kevin, first, just general thoughts. There's more to it, but those are two particular ones that obviously stick out like a sore thumb if you're running a store and you actually had a direct account. So, just
Yeah.
general thoughts on that.
I mean, interesting call.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely taking more control of their product, which,
Mm-hmm.
to be fair, kind of makes sense. You can see that happening.
Yeah, and we
Um,
anticipated it based on what they had said in the past. If Fanatics said they wanted to
Absolutely.
control end to end, this is right in the playbook of what they said they were going to do.
Now, in terms of breaking, I also heard that there's more leniency if you break on their new Fanatics Live that's coming out.
Okay.
You could do online breaks that way. So it's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
then it's screwing with places like Whatnot and all these other live streaming
Mm-hmm.
platforms, which I
Yeah,
mean,
put in the hammer. Yeah.
all the power to it. And then combine that with the fact that eBay is now pulling breakers. There's a big shakeup happening. It's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. It's hard to tell where everything's going to go. Breaking's kind of been the wild, wild west ever since I got into sports cards and Pokemon and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess we'll see how it goes.
Yep. So, Brad, we're getting the squeeze put in. eBay's putting in the squeeze from one side. Fanatics is putting in the squeeze from the other. And there's a bunch of folks that are not going to make it onto the other side of this when these forces continue to squeeze.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I just think people that are dedicated to their profession and are professional about it, to me, those people don't have anything to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
Just again, looking from the outside, looking in, I think it is going to clean up. There's some absolutely terrible breakers out there, and
Yeah.
everybody thinks they can just buy a box and break it and make money, and the cards don't get shipped. It really becomes a bit of a stain on the hobby and the whole industry itself when you see all this constantly. I think by mainstreaming, putting it all together, taking control and mainstreaming it, I think you're just going to see a better experience for people that want to buy breaks. They're going to buy from people that are more, yeah, I'll say more professional, like
Mm-hmm.
honestly, like there's just so many bad ones out there. So I think overall it's a great thing for hobbyists like ourselves, true collectors out there as well, and guys that enjoy it. I think it's good. Get rid of a lot of it, clean it up, and watch what Fanatics will do. And obviously they're making it's a business. Fanatics Live, when's that going to launch? I don't know
Mm-hmm.
exactly the date on it, but yeah, that's good. They're going to go after the other platforms. It'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Now,
It'll be
I'm going
interesting
to.
to see because the rumor is that Fanatics will also go after grading. And that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But that's a rumor, definitely not founded on anything, but there's been a few people who've talked about they want to encompass everything. And kind of makes sense, but I don't know.
I have a couple of bucks on that. My belief is that they'll. The question is what deal is on the table. That's the real question. It's not just they don't just want to do any deal, but I think if the right deal was presented in front of them, I think they would totally do it, and it would be something that would make sense again with their strategy, with their stated strategy to do end to end. Well, grading is part of end to end. You're doing breaking, you're doing platform, you're doing all this. If you're trying to get all the Infinity Stones, and you said you want all the Infinity Stones, grading is one of the Infinity Stones. So that's part of the deal. So the question is then, if you believe that they are going to go under that roadmap they laid out for themselves out loud, then the question isn't if, the question is when and who. That's where the question comes in. I'll read a couple of these comments here, but I also want to kind of present the opposite side. We'll present the little devil's advocate because these are fun topics anyway. And again, we're not in control of what they do, but we can still discuss the elements and the pieces of it. So Dave says, my thought is a Fanatics taking over breaking. They're definitely putting a squeeze on it for sure. Sending in 50 cards for the sub special. 40 in Korean PC registry player. The rest are PC of other Japanese and Korean players. Sounds good. Best of
That's
luck.
awesome.
Bobby Burrell, good evening. Shake up more like shake down. Perhaps, Bobby. You mean I don't get a Tesla? Alas, no. We'll have to see what kind of car you put in the garage, Bobby, for the knowledge. Dave says, I agree with you, Brad. With the exception of the old-time Tops Direct dealers, those are the ones that may also be part of that squeeze. If they're not, I'll touch on a couple of the other bullet points. I touched on two particular ones, but let's add a couple of the bullet points back into it as well. I know a few that I see the writing in front of them. Absolutely. Yep. Fanatics partners with PSA, then they can continue to claim it's a third-party opinion. It's an option. A strategic partnership is totally an option if they want to avoid the optics of owning. They can be a strategic partner, like a strong advocate for one of the graders. That is an option on the table. I'm just be curious to see what direction they decide to go. And that might be a way of kind of circumventing some of the eyeballs that they're going to have on them if they win straight did an acquisition. So that might be one angle they could do for sure. So let me kind of play into this. So kind of to Brad's point, a lot of those tenants are kind of speaking to that, trying to make it more professional. They want to be able to audit. They didn't phrase it exactly like this, but they want the ability to be able to audit, and they say they will check on stuff, which means you'll need good point of sale records. They want to be able to see sales data. They want to be able to see, P&L statements effectively. That's, they didn't outline every single detail, but they basically said we should be able to look at these things, and that's going to be part of the terms and conditions of continuing to be a direct dealer. It's basically saying if you're not in the 21st century, you're in a lot of trouble.
Well, that's exactly it, right? They made a few statements, like a lot. I know it sounds bad, but a lot of older store owners are very, very set in their ways, and the newer school companies that are coming in want those forward-thinking, clean, modern-looking stores to represent their brand. So I think they're gonna take back a lot of that kind of stuff too, with people who don't want to move forward, and they have the 4-row boxes all over their store, and the old school like sports card stores that we see still in existence.
Yeah, no, I it's true. There's a lot of different angles you can look at. I think one thing that I haven't heard anyone mention it today at all in any of their recap videos on this whole thing. But one of the things is the reason they want to do this is so they can make sure people don't know when they go into a hobby store and they buy a box of Topps baseball cards. Say I charge $300 for a box of Topps baseball cards. They get nothing out of it. They go home. They're mad. That box was designed, and we've talked about this many times, Carlos, with Upper Deck. It was designed to sell at $130 a box. So by having control and seeing what the stores and the LCSs are selling this product for, it can make for a better overall collectible experience. So you're making sure that it's not price fixing per se, but it's making sure that the product's being sold for what it should be sold for. Because that person might not think that AMG Collectibles or Carlos Cards sold them a box for $300. It's still Topps. So instantly they're going to have a negative thought about Topps. We talk about Upper Deck all the time with product. The AEW that came out that was supposed to be an $80 box, it went to $300. People are like, oh man, those AEW cards now.
If it had come with burgers, I think less people would have been upset.
Yeah, there you go. You know what I mean? But their perception is, man, that stuff was junk. It was terrible. Well, it was awesome for $80. You could have opened up 4 boxes instead of paying $300 for one. So that, even though that had nothing to do with Upper Deck still takes the heat for that. So if Fanatics is looking at the big picture, to be able to make sure their products, there's the proper margins are being made so everyone can keep the lights on, but these extreme gaps are taken care of. It's better for everybody involved in the hobby.
So like I said, I'm more than happy to buy the restock price from my distributor if I'm able to make more than $4 after spending $900. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the point that Brad makes are very valid. They're reasonable. Now let me have a little bit of fun with this. Let's play the other side of it, because as we all know, I am one who is a great advocate of our Fanatics overlords, especially if the check clears. That's all I'm saying. All I'm saying, Ruben, your money spends good here. That's all I'm trying to say. Just look right here. Just keep this in mind. But the thing is, so let's play the other side of the equation, though. Brad has presented the logical business side of it. From the Fanatic standpoint, a lot of those things make sense. It can potentially help out the consumer in ferreting out some of the shadier characters, not necessarily creating regulation, but creating a bit of a control, in the sense that not just everybody and their brother who showed up here 5 seconds ago and saw dollar signs was able to walk in the door, say, "Oh yeah, I'm a business," and then do a bunch of weird stuff, and then if they need to, run away. It creates the necessity for something that has a little bit more roots. You're putting certain restrictions on it, saying you can't have just come in as a fly by night thing. That's one angle that you can look at it. The other angle on it is that while Fanatics is good at being a business, while Fanatics is good at making money and doing that portion of it, is Fanatics the correct arbiter of who's doing a good job or a bad job, based on the fact that they, while not new to running this type of business, they're new to this space. Michael Rubin doesn't know that much about cards. He's learning on the fly quickly. They're hiring people that know some stuff, but we're recycling a lot of people. If you didn't like the old model, if we're hiring people that were inside of the old model, are the the king is dead, long live the king. Are we sure that they're any better equipped than the model you didn't like before? Because they were involved in the old model. So let me present that side of the question. So Kevin, any thoughts on that? This is the other side of the equation. Is Fanatics qualified? While they can make the rules, does that mean that do they actually know enough about this market to understand whether the rules will not have unintended consequences? Is one way that I would present it.
It's hard. Like Michael Rubin, he was a shoe guy, wasn't he? Before he got into Fanatics.
I want to say something like that, and then I think you're thinking, what's his name? Who's the one that he? Yeah, Luber was the one who did StockX.
Right. Okay.
Rubin had some businesses, but then the one that obviously took off, the big one, is Fanatics became apparel and all this stuff, and there, you want to buy a baseball jersey, go to the Fanatics store. You want to buy a replica belt, Fanatics store.
In terms of recognizing a sports market, I think Fanatics probably has a really good beat on what is necessary to kind of keep the players' vested interest, as opposed to Upper Deck and Panini and Topps, who were paying, like, there was no incentive for athletes to really sign outside of like a couple of the big guys who had exclusives and things like that, where they're obligated to sign with Upper Deck. But like, the good thing with Fanatics is that they seem to really have the players buy-in, which I think from a sports card aspect is gonna do more, because nobody wants redemptions. So hopefully the fact that the players associations are getting a back end cut on some of this stuff, they have more incentive to do more and to limit that kind of stuff. But it's hard to say in terms of them knowing what to do with sports cards or like the industry. No, but they bought Topps, and Topps knows, and they probably kept people on board for Topps that needed to be on board to kind of teach the generation that's coming in, that's kind of forward thinking. And there's going to be a lot of changes, but they might be good changes, they might be bad changes, who knows.
All right, hold on. You just hit on one of the things that I wanted to touch on. Topps was in a position to get bought out because they hadn't fully taken advantage of when Eisner and that group took over Topps. They never were able to successfully grow their segment of the pie. They had Topps and all this brand equity and all these years, and they had dominance, power over the MLB license, which was still one of the more. When people talk about sports cards, generally they'll say baseball cards. They just say it like by default, but we mean sports cards theoretically, but we'll say, oh, you mean the baseball cards? And Topps is synonymous with that for the long. When Fanatics initially came in and took the MLB license, people were like, oh my God, Topps is going to lose it after 70 years, blah, blah, blah. And they were freaking out. But I was sitting there like, but Topps did a crappy job, because Topps had all this time and all this, and they had they had the MLB license on lockdown for a decade plus, and they were in a position to get bought out and not maneuvered so easily. So are you sure that if the Topps people are still in charge, you're the same morons that got this screwed up in the first place, to the point that you're able to be snookered? Maybe you're not good at your job. So again, I'm presenting, but I want to present the other side of this equation. Brad, are you kind of seeing where I'm going with this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I just think it was such a move by Rubin and Fanatics to come in, like, to pull off what they pulled off, to do this. Like, it's whether you like it or not, it's brilliant from a business standpoint. They went right in and got those licenses with the leagues, with the players. Like, it's hard to think about keeping this a secret. Like, nobody knew that this was going down. Like, it wasn't even on the radar that this was going to go down. Like, in the collectible community, you get a whisper of something now. There's 15 YouTube videos made within 20 minutes of it, whether it's true or not. There was nothing up until that point. And then it just was like, wow, what just went on? What just happened here? Right.
Mm-hmm. But what does it say about the relationship that Topps had at that point with the associations that none of them even tipped them off?
Yeah.
So how bad? Like I'm not in the room. I can't speak to the interpersonal relationship with Brad. You understand from a business perspective, the wheeling and dealing, the interpersonal relationship. Like if you've developed a really good relationship with somebody, even if you think something is going to happen, they'll be like, "Hey, Brad, you didn't hear it from me, but you might want to know XYZ is happening. So and so called me and talked to me about X. This conversations happen all the time if you've got that relationship."
Right. And I think it's like, you know what, if you're not paying your employees all these years and they're working for you faithful and they just don't know, it's almost like I feel like Topps had the deal. It was on such a bottom radar. It was like, you know what, Topps makes baseball cards. That's what they have for 100 years or however long it's been. And all of a sudden, Ruben goes, again, this is me thinking what could have happened. Ruben goes into a room and says, guys, do you know how much money you're leaving on the table? We're going to give you a percentage of, X, Y, Z of this company. You're going to make this. All of a sudden they go, instead of getting $20 million a year from Topps for signing for the rights to baseball or whatever, however it all works, we're going to give you 30%. Plus I'm going to give you $40 million a year and I'm going to double it. And I think that he made them aware of the situation, which by making them aware, I feel like there was a little bit of maybe animosity towards Topps. It's like, hey guys, you haven't been giving us what we could have been getting. So when you go in and you create that animosity or despair against the other company, that gives you another step up the ladder. And all of a sudden, Ruben's just sitting there going, washed his hands. He's got this thing, hook, line, and sinker. Time to make my move, right?
The crazy part to me is how quickly they got the basketball and football. That one, like Topps is nothing without baseball. We know that. They have some other stuff, but it's not their market. But like for them to come in and take, like after seeing Topps lose the baseball, because I think Topps lost it first, to then come in and take Panini for football and basketball, I was just like, all right, I don't know what to do. Like, this is crazy.
For sure. But the only reason I'm saying though, I think what Brad is presenting is plausible. But the point that I'm making is, if the relationship between Topps and the players and MLB had been super strong and consistent, and they had felt like they were at least getting in good communication, you don't think they don't at least give them a heads up? At least give them a chance to have a conversation? But it tells me that Topps took it for granted. It tells me that Topps did not foster that relationship to the point. Basically, the first person that came in with a viable, solid proposal that, hey, I've got the backing, I'm a legit dude, this is what I can offer you, what do you want to do? And that they basically ditched Topps at the first opportunity. Like it was almost like the first legit guy that came over and made like a good offer, they ditched Topps. And Topps is like, wait, what? What about us? It's like, what about you? All you do is just cut the check every year. We don't hear from you. We don't talk to you. Like, okay.
And when you feel scorned, right? Like when you feel scorned, that's when things go different. Like that's like, who knows how it all went down.
Yeah. But I'm offering a scenario that would explain the way in which this played out, where it never felt like I think if the relationship had been good, I think at the bare minimum, even if in the end they couldn't have outbid them, if the relationship was good, then Topps gets the first right of refusal. Then they come back and say, hey, we got a call and they're offering X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. Is there anything that you can do for us? And maybe Topps has a chance to counter. Maybe Topps has a chance to have a conversation. But I don't think they ever got that chance. I think they were literally about to go into a SPAC and it got torpedoed at the last possible second, which is to say that wasn't part of their plan, which is to say they were not in the loop. They were not on the phone calls and nobody reached out.
Yeah. Right. It's true. But if you're taking, absolutely. No, it's a good point. But if you're taking advantage, then it just seems like all of a sudden when the eyes got opened, when presented the whole thought about, hey, we're going to give you the percentage, we're going to give you X amount of dollars, the eyes got really big, really excited, and then they're scorned. So it's interesting.
I found out like Brian Gray was paying Kobe Bryant like a stupidly low amount for autographs in the 90s. Like late 90s, early 2000s.
You're talking about Kenny, not Brian Gray.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kenny. Of the stories. Kenny.
But it's back to it's the whole thing. he had the right to say yes or no.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's kind of, I won't get off on that top. I almost got off on topic on the shill bidding thing, just because I'm like, again, I get very irritated with that one. I'm never worried. Personally, Brad Hartland is never worried about shill bidding. It doesn't, when I'm buying stuff for me, I'm buying it at the price that I want to pay. It's not even an issue. Won't get on that topic anyways, but I think there's going to be more and more deals that will come out. I'd love to know the PWCC deal, how that went down. That's very intriguing. And then you talk about, Carlos, you mentioned you're good. It's like, hey, they're just going to sit around. They've got cash, they've got capital, and they're going to wait for the right deal to fall. Fanatics is going to wait. If there's another opportunity, hey, but that's the same as anyone that's in business. Obviously, if there's a business that comes by and someone calls me tonight and says, hey, whether it's in the sports cards business, if it's in any business, when they give you the heads up, and if you look at a business, you're going to pounce on it, and you're going to jump, and you're going to take that opportunity, right? Like that's what entrepreneurs, got to make sure I say that right in case Dustin hears that, right? Entrepreneurs, it's so important to have capital ready, and to seize the opportunity. When Fanatics, they could smell the blood was in the air, and all of a sudden you go, they pulled that deal off, what, in 48 hours?
Well, if I'm being so my scenario, Brad, is that I don't think they pulled it off in 48 hours. I think they were talking for a while, because you don't just snap your fingers and get that kind of a deal done underneath everybody else. But
no, I've heard that it was. I heard it was like the 11th hour, and I got some people who were like very close. Like it was like, we either do this now or everything collapses. Like it was.
I'm not talking about the final proposal that is a take it or leave it. I'm talking about the discussion, the groundwork laid in. Like it's a relationship business. The only point that I've been making in all of this is that it is a relationship business in business, where if you have that good relationship, it affords you certain, like I said, it affords you certain heads up. If somebody's trying to do a shady deal with you, but you're in good terms with your business partner, whoever it is, they're not just going to suddenly shut you out. They're going to give you a chance to at least know what's going on. You're not going to be completely in the dark. It should not have been a surprise to you. You should know that something was going on. And if you didn't, it means your relationship wasn't good. That's all I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. So Topps laid the groundwork for their own fall long before the final deal was offered. When the final deal was offered, then probably he put a timeline on it. And he goes, look, guys, agreed or not agreed, because we can't hold this too long. And then they made the deal. So real quick, I'll read a couple of these here. Thank you for the comments, everybody. Bobby says, the power to self-govern is certainly within the right, as long as they benefit dealers and collectors alike. That's the hope. I just wanted to present a couple of alternative angles as well.
I want to say, I think that's an excellent statement by Bobby.
Absolutely agreed. Dave here says, might handle shady breakers, but some of the old-time card shops are also part of the backbone of the hobby, and right now they're the ones that may be in a little bit of trouble if they haven't adapted. James says, I agree, Brad. Respect is due there. Absolutely. Thank you, James. CC says, and also good evening, CC. Fanatics is one of the few that could pull this off in secret. They already had licensing arrangements, just not for the trading card side. That's what I mean. Like, in the course of existing conversation, they already have a relationship. That's why I'm trying to lay out both pieces of this. They already have a relationship with the merchandise licensing. So it's not like they don't know each other. It's not a cold call. You pick up the phone and go, hey, by the way, let's talk about the trading cards. You can already be in a meeting for something legitimate. No, everybody expects that meeting to happen. But by the way, go, hey, how do you guys feel about how your trading card thing is going on? And then conversation goes, and you keep it really high level, and then eventually you start getting the nitty gritty a little bit, and they go, what if we could do this for you? And then suddenly you have a presentation, and then all pieces come together. So both can be true. It can be that the proposal came together. Here's the offer. Take it or leave it 48 hours, real quick. But the groundwork had already been laid before that. They didn't just suddenly get a presentation out of the blue, not expecting anything. Conversations had already been happening before that kind of were under the guise of already existing conversations, because they're already talking. And Topps is sitting in the back doing this, not knowing anything's going on. Everything's good.
I know, it's crazy.
That's my scenario. That I'm just presenting that reenactment of how this could have gone down. Real quick, should a card manufacturer be allowed to create/buy a card grading service? Isn't that too much of a conflict of interest? So I'm glad you said conflict of interest and not monopoly, because people were using that term incorrectly. Please educate me. So it can be. Like, let's be honest. If you're the one producing the product and you're also able to grade the product, is there incentive to grade it more favorably? There can be. The potential is always there because you could do it. Look, I'm never going to say no to the possibility of shadiness here because I am the patron saint of shadiness.
Do you think it's I don't.
It's not. It's not. Nothing is definitive. I'm saying it's a potential conflict of interest because the opportunity is there. You could want. You don't have to make an edict and say you must grade all our cards in tens. No, you don't have to do that. But you could be like, hey, we just released this product. It would be really helpful if if these came out okay. Oh, by the way, that's part of the manufacturing process. That's an acceptable flaw.
Right, but I kind of think that so say if they start to if a manufacturer has a grading company and they start in 2024 and they start grading their own cards that they produce in 2024, we still have 150 years of stuff out there for grading companies to do. I feel like people make a mountain out of it. I just go ahead. It's still the consumer's choice. Do you want to use them to grade the card or don't you?
Yeah, it's never going to be, but just to keep it in mind this way. Again, patron saint of shadiness. This is literally, I'm a subject matter expert on these things. You have the backstop that grading standards ebb and flow. They come in and out like the waves. Today it's a 10, tomorrow it's a 9, then it's a 10 again, then it's a 9, then it's a 10. Depends on the day of the week, the direction of the sun, the position of the moon, how many times we hit the like button and charged Eric. Mm-hmm. All of these are factors that could play into it. And you've got a natural built-in subjectivity breakdown because on a newer product, a lot of times there are borderline cases. There's a strong 9 and a weak 9. And within the context of we're just using PSA, a PSA 10 is not a perfect card. It does not have to be perfect. There is room for a couple of things to be off within the rules and parameters they've set. But you can also have a perfect card that also is a PSA 10. It can be 50-50 centering, sharpest of sharpest edges, sharpest corners, sharpest everything, best picture, flawless surface, and it's a 10. And you've got one that's 49, 51. It's got a small little thing here, but it's so minor you can't even see it with the naked eye. That's also a 10. Within the rules, that is also a 10. But that one isn't as perfect as the first one that I just gave you, but they're both 10s. Mm-hmm. So we've got a little bit of room for error there, and manufacturing tolerances are in there. O-Pee-Chee rough cut. It's allowed.
Yeah.
All right. It says here, Brian Gray has the PBA now. He was listening, Carlos. Where's the check? I know. If it's true, if BG has... But it's not prism bowling. I wanted prism bowling, James. Prism bowling was the dream. But, I'm glad BG has... if BG has the PBA, it's a step in the right direction. Let's get my American Gladiator set. Brian, I want my American Gladiator set, BG. Let's go. The Netflix special is coming out next week. I'm in. just throwing it out there. Definitely muddies the water a bit. Yep. Bobby here says Fanatics had license for the memorabilia. Absolutely. So it wasn't Epiphany. I agree. Yep. Mm-hmm. I think it was more next business move when Topps was trading business as usual. But that was my point that I was making. Is that Topps was too casual. They took it for granted. They had at one point. Remember, Topps had been the exclusive MLB producer for such a long time, but because of the way they decided to do their business, they just sat back and let it be lax. That's what I mean. So the idea that, we kept on a bunch of the Topps managers. Are you sure? I might have considered firing a few more of them because they did a hell of a job in letting you steal the license underneath their feet. Maybe they're not the ones you want. Maybe you need somebody else. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just posing a question.
Yeah. And they keep building it up, and they're going to build up this company, and then they're going to have their IPO here in a year, 2, 6 months. Who knows when it's going to be? But that's all. That's the goal for all these companies. Yeah. Every company builds themselves up, and then they go for it, and then they become public, and then it can get broke down again. It can go back and forth 5, 6 times. Who knows what's going to happen? But Fanatics, they look at the revenue that Fanatics generates now, and the brand. Fanatics is out there in so many places now. I see it more and more and more, and it's becoming a name that's just synonymous with all sports.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I'm going to go public, Brad.
I think you should. You should sell an IPO. Become fractionalized.
Who wants it?
I'm in as long as you can produce for me the cheese string I'm on.
Done.
I have demands.
Brad?
I have demands.
Brad's private jet, so.
There you go.
CC says, whenever you have vertical integration, you have you have at best perceived conflict of interest, licenses, manufacturer, distribution, selling, platform, grading. Yeah. But that's why I'm making the distinction. There will be the perception of conflict of interest no matter what, whether they get a grading company or they do not. There's already the perceived conflict of interest now where you've got the platform, where you've got all these other elements of it, because you could favor stuff inside. And depending on how subtly you do it, it's hard to prove. I could walk into Fanatics right now and, hey, by the way, guys, we're going to make sure the fix is in for our stuff. We're going to make sure it works out, and I can make it so no one will know. It's not that difficult. It really isn't. I can make sure that our stuff is always at an advantage versus our competitors on our platforms, no matter what happens. And if anybody asks, it's like, well, that's business. These companies are running their own thing. It's like, but you control who's on the platform. Yes. Mm-hmm. And you control who gets access. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Nothing is in writing. Nothing, Brad. Nothing.
It's true. And at the end of the day, we're talking about all these things are not necessities. Like we get into use the M word, the monopoly word, or big conflicts of interest. Like there's none of these things are necessities for people. So I feel like regulation, monopoly, conflict of interest, these are all terms that to me, I apply more for, if you're milk producers of Canada, or if you're, like all these things that are necessities for people. I just feel like we get a little bit too in depth on that at times.
Well, I think we're separating out two things, though. I'm making the case that there is always the potential ability where you have enough control over a segment, but I'm also a collector where it doesn't impact me that much. I have enough knowledge in what's going on where if you ask me if it's possible for there to be a conflict of interest, my answer is yes. If you ask me if there is a viable avenue to do it, then you better be working for Fanatics, because then I'll give you my PowerPoint deck. I might already have ideas. Kevin, I got ideas. I got ways we can make this happen. I got ways. But the point is that you just have to be creative. It's not like it's rocket science. You could come up with ways to make this happen if you want to. And that's always a possibility. But again, I don't take sports cards that seriously. For me it's an enjoyable pursuit, and I'm not overly concerned about it because a lot of that stuff will be overt enough that you can figure it out on your own. And if you're concerned that the fix is in, then stay out of the game. It's like going to Vegas in the casino. If you honestly think that they've messed around with the game so that you cannot win, and literally the fix is in, and it's not just the odds, but they've skewed it against you, well then don't play that game. Stay completely out of it. Just back away and go somewhere else, because you can figure it out. You might not be able to prove it, but if you observe it enough, you'll be able to pick up some things that'll make you. Alarm bell should go off above your. Trust your gut. If you really suspect the fix is in, back away. Let somebody else do it. Maybe Fanatics will buy my app. There you go. 5 million and all the crumble cookies I can eat. Live the dream, Bobby. I believe in you, and I appreciate the crumble cookies. What, not necessary? Sound like my wife. There you go, Dave. Or Brad, maybe. Let's say Fanatics is in the process of monopolization, although that's not to say they will ever get there. I think they will try their best within. They're going to basically try to go up to the. If Fanatics was like me, you figure out where the line is, and you take a step and a half back from the line, and you get as close as you can to a step and a half of the line, so that you have plausible deniability. No, it's not. Absolutely not. And then still basically operate as close as you can to it, so that you control as much of it as you can. Why wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. You're trying to operate a business. Your job is to make money. What's the best way? Control the variables. Mm-hmm. As many variables as you can control. And I can guarantee you, and it should be obvious, but one of the shoes that will drop is that Fanatics will have Fanatics sports card stores. And it'll be in stadiums. It'll be in. This is not a crazy prediction. Like, book it. They'll do something to that effect, very similar to the way they've got the Fanatics kiosks and stores and whatever for merchandise. When you go buy your jersey, you'll also be able to buy hobby boxes.
It's already happening.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll make it even easier. And trust me, those stores will have no problem getting allocation. I guarantee you they'll get as much as they need to sell through. And they will have, and if they want to, they'll be able to sell on the Fanatics Live platform, on the Fanatics platform live, and the rest of it, and it'll all be integrated and very easy. That is not a bold statement. It's a very logical statement given what they can do and what they could do and what they probably should do.
Yeah, especially given the cost of retail from a standpoint. You'll see, I mean, I don't have the list of all the Fanatics, but Why wouldn't every lid store have a section in there? Well, they're going to. They'll have
They
every
do
lid store.
already. They do.
Yeah. It'll get
Locally,
bigger.
they do.
Yeah.
It'll get
I'm just
bigger.
saying what I'm maybe I'll put it this way, Kevin. I'm referring to expanding it to the point that you have somebody in there who actually knows what the product is and isn't just treating it as a SKU, who is actually selling the product. So
It'll
I mean,
be
they
me.
take it the extra step. Yeah, because right now you go in there, yeah, you can get it, and they'll do it, and they'll scan the barcode and charge you the price, and that's the end of that. But they may turn it into a thing like, oh, they'll have pack wars and they'll play. I'm sure eventually they will have some standalone stores as well. Where they're going to be, how many of them they're going to be, whatever it is, I would be shocked if they didn't do it. It would make total sense for me. Again, if you want control, right? You could become, if you're one of those stores that they really like, maybe you become a Fanatics licensee, and that becomes your avenue to be like, you're a regular card store, but you never have to ask where the allocation is coming from because you will always have as much as you can sell.
Hmm.
I could totally see it. Powered by Fanatics. Done.
Yeah.
David says Panini may keep right on going with the unlicensed products. They can. The only thing that's going to be tricky though is that Panini, I'm using baseball only as an example. Panini does have the MLB PA license as part of their baseball cards. So they did have one of the two licenses. So the question is, because the Players Association is also part of this Fanatics thing, if they drop their support, then it becomes even more complicated. You might not be able to pull it off. So I'm not sure if you're going to be able to pull that off in the same way. I'm not saying no, but I'm just saying it might be a little bit trickier if the PA is no longer part of your licensing if you're Panini. Just a thought.
I just think, as a collector, I know everyone's got a lane in different things, but I do not like unlicensed product. I like I just don't want to collect it.
I mean, depends. I think it depends on the product. There's definitely some viable products that are like cool. Like Prism Baseball does some cool stuff, but it would still be much cooler and better if it was licensed.
That's what I mean. You see Flawless Baseball, you see, and I'm a huge fan of Brian Gray, and it will give me the gears. But honestly,
I will recant when I get my American Gladiators and not 1 second before.
But the products, I wish they would sell for more. I wish there was more demand for them, and I like seeing a logo. I want to see Wayne Gretzky with the Oilers or Rangers. I mean, that's what I want to see when I collect them. That's what the memories are. So,
Absolutely. I think part of it also. So, like in the same vein. So for some of the Soto cards that I have for his rookie year, I've got some of the Prisms and some of those. I like the cards because I like the fact that they have Prism. I like the fact that they have Select. I like Select design, even though obviously they've overproduced now. Panini has overproduced the Select. They created, I think, for the current one now they've created like a fifth level. I'm like, oh, for the love of all that is holy, stop, stop, just stop. But I like the way Select looks. Now, obviously, I'm adjusting my pricing down. If you're just going to print a ton more of it and add another level and do all that stuff, okay, yeah. To me, that lowers the value. However, that doesn't mean I don't
like it before it became. Well, no, I liked it when it first dropped as a retail because it was accessible. Because when it dropped at hobby at that level, like Jesus couldn't afford a booster box of that, let alone anyone else. So retail was the only thing you could rip, but now it's like they added 6,000 more parallels.
Listen, you'll change your tune when they get onto the Cheese String 'em on parallel. That's the next logical step. Just bring it together. X Cheese String 'em on. Listen, we all want that card. It's coming. But anyway, the point is that I still like Select Design, but I'm going to adjust my pricing accordingly. I will basically say, no, I look, if there's a nice Juan Soto card and they do Select this year, and there's a nice Juan Soto card here with San Diego, I'll grab a couple of them, but I'm not going to pay a lot. I'll adjust the pricing accordingly. I have no issue with that. There is still some interest, but I'm not going to go out and buy boxes of it. That's the differentiator. Somebody else has to buy the boxes. I'll take the singles, and I'll pay appropriate market value for the singles, which will be lower. That's just how I play it. But I'm looking at it from a collecting standpoint. I still like the design. I still like the general product. So Panini may keep right on. We covered that one. And Fanatics can then point and claim competition. Yeah, I think Fanatics understands that there is a line. They don't want to completely shut the door. I didn't say that. For me, maybe a way around it would be maybe they just say do sub licensing. Maybe they just say, yeah, we'll still let you produce those if you want to do that. Again, we'll see what happens with Panini. The real question is what happens with Panini. That's the part that nobody knows for sure. Fanatics has been, again, we talked about the squeeze. Fanatics is putting the squeeze on Panini from multiple directions there too. So the question is what becomes of Panini, how that ends up, how that arrangement ends up being. Is it a purchase? Is it a licensing deal? What happens? Logan here, good evening. Can't wait for the show this week. Sounds good. Thank you. Didn't Panini in 1992 Topps or UD for having exclusive license certain cards? PA was part of the Fleer lawsuit against Topps. I think clear claim exclusive PA agreement signed by Topps violated antitrust law. But the difference was they were signed by player, and now there's a union. Yes. That would have been in the early 80s. And I have no idea how that would impact legal stuff. Yeah, it's a little bit complicated. Like, you can sign individual players and make cards of individual players if they're out of the Players Association. Because, like, for example, Barry Bonds, I think for years, was his own standalone entity. So if you wanted to make a Barry Bonds card, you could. You just have to reach out to Barry Bonds and be like, hey, man, can we make a card of you? Can we sign a deal? And if he agrees, and you can make a Barry Bonds card. Because he wasn't the Players Association. So having the Players Association license didn't mean anything. That's why you'd have video games where you'd have a character that was Barry Bonds, but he was not called Barry Bonds, even though he looked like Barry Bonds. And he played for the San Francisco Giants. That happened because Barry Bonds would not sign off his likeness and name. So they had to create a player in his place that was Barry Bonds, but we're not calling him Barry Bonds. I agree with Brad. I don't like unlicensed cards. Fair enough. That said, there should be no exclusive licensing. Screw the case for MLB, MLBPA. Competition breeds excellence. That's the hope. I just don't know. And this is a conversation I have with some of the other 90s guys. We have this conversation a lot because the 90s inserts were awesome. There were so many good ideas, so many concepts and things. But even when they try to redo stuff, it's lamer now. It's like a cheaper version of it. Like it's worse than the previous iteration of it. And here's the thing. I think, honestly, if you had competition, unless a company wants to go out of business right away, without controlling your own printing facility, if you're basically, you start up company X, we're going to have Brad cards. Awesome. Cool. All right. Congratulations, Brad. You got a license. You can have any of them that you want. You can have all of them. Cool. But here's the thing. The printer that you're using is the same printer that Panini's using, the same printer that Topps is using. What new technology you plan to bring to the table? Brad's choice. That looks an awful lot like Kramer's choice with Kaboom background. But it's not called Kaboom. It's called Kaplow. It's like, dude, that's not creative. That's not new. So even if you got somebody who's got amazing ideas, can they produce it? Like I'm just posing the question. Can they produce it? That's the question. Because your supplier has to be able to make the card. You can come up with these amazing, ridiculous ideas. And look, I'll plug it. Jim Cramer. No, not Jim Cramer. Mike Kramer? Pacific.
Yeah, Kramer's. I think it's...
Regardless, it's Kramer. So he's going to have his autobiography coming out, I think, in the fall, which I think will be interesting. I'm intrigued. I'd like to read it because they came up with a lot of cool ideas in their day. But a lot of those ideas came at a cost. You know, they had to invest into R&D, basically. They're like, oh, could we do this? And they're like, well, yeah, but it'll cost us X. All right, do it. But I think you got somebody who's willing to do that.
Yeah, if the hobby starts to catch on more now that you don't need that, I don't want to say you don't need autograph. Everyone loves autograph cards and jersey cards. You're starting to see the switch now, where people would sooner have a higher quality card than a piece of a jersey in the card, than an auto in the card. Like, you're getting back to that 90s feel. So I think the card manufacturers are going to see that, and they're going to start coming out with higher quality cards that necessarily don't have. I don't think we need jersey cards anymore. I really don't. I think you can get away with that. Produce a high quality card with, like you said, some of these cool designs and techniques, and still keep it. You remember, you're only dealing with a 2.5 by 3.
Yeah, it's 2.5 by 3.5.
It's 2.5 by 3.5 card. So it's gonna be fun.
Yeah. The only caveat that I put though to everybody whenever we talk about the competition thing, look, I get what you're saying, but I understand why the leagues don't want to deal with it. It's simpler for them to sign one contract and not have to worry about all these other pieces, moving parts. It's actually easier for them. So it's kind of a logic thing for them.
All right,
and then
boys, sorry, I'm going to cut you off. I got to go. I
Go
hear
ahead.
Nat. I have to go do feeding. It's been a pleasure. I'll be back if we do this again next week. Let me know. See ya.
See, bud.
Sounds good. Have a good night. But the only piece I wanted to add, though, for the competition is even if you got competition, don't necessarily assume that's going to get you these wild and wacky new ideas because you got to be able to make it. You can have an amazing idea in your head, but you have to actually be able to have somebody that can produce it, and you have to be able to produce it at a price point that you'll pay for it. If somebody says, "All right, guys, I was able to find a supplier, they can do the thing, but the product that I'm going to give you is going to look an awful lot like Upper Deck Flagship, for example, Upper Deck Flagship product, and it's going to be $35 a pack. You cool?" And they're like, "No."
No.
No, not for an equivalent product. You're gonna have to be. You got to do more stuff. But if we do more stuff, it's $70 a pack. Well, that's not gonna work. Then, even though you're trying to be competitive with technology, can you afford it in the price point that will make it competitive to your competitors? It's both, right? We're not just competing on technology; we're competing on price. You could have a way cooler card, but if your box is 5 times the cost, I may not be able to play in that, even though I think those cards look really cool.
Right. But in my opinion, when I look at anything that they produced in the 90s to produce now, what they're paying players to sign and memorabilia and all that stuff, I feel like it can be produced and with the amount of money they're getting compared to those boxes. I mean, they produced what? Topps Finest when it first came out. Let's go back 93. What was it? $50 a box?
No, it was I think $4 or $5 a pack.
Yeah.
Which in 1993 dollars was obviously massive.
Yeah.
1993 dollars, and it quickly became $20 a pack once people got into it. That's secondary market. Once it got hot, real quick, it became $20 a pack.
Yeah, but there's years like I pick up I picked up a box of Finest football the other day for $100, which was pretty cool.
Oh no, no, no!
99.
It is possible to get some of those '90s ones, but I'm talking about when '93 Finest came out. Refractors had never been a thing. There's one refractor per box. It initially started off at somewhere between 4 and 5 a pack. I want to say it was $3.99 per pack, and then rapidly went up from there. Once the secondary market and people were like freaking out, because remember this is the midst of we're in the last stage of the overproduction era.
Yeah.
So 93 Finest in relative terms is limited. So all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I got to get my hands on the shiny new product, literally the shiny newness. And here it is. And this is it. And it's way different than what everybody else is making. But it's obviously priced more. You know, when Upper Deck went to $1, people freaked out. And it was only 4 years before that.
Yeah.
So CC says, be a player cards issued by UD were great. No NHL license, but NHLPA. I don't know if the NHLPA uniforms would fly today. I don't think people would run out to go get those. You talk about unlicensed. Technically, that'd be licensed. I just don't know if people would get excited about it. Dave says, Brad, are you setting up a national? The couple deals I know are expecting a good show, but are a bit apprehensive as last couple of regional shows were okay, but kind of blah for them.
Yeah, I'm going as Brad the Collector, and which I always do, and I'm going to have a blast. And I think it's going to. Well, actually, I don't think it's going to be an awesome show. So for me, I know what my expectations are, so I'm very excited for it.
Nice. Kareem Kerber says, Mike Kramer Pacific. Thank you.
Yes.
People like game used jerseys and cards, but not the fake Walmart stuff. I think in moderation. I still think there's a place for it. Like, if it's interesting, you can still make it. Like, as a player collector, I've got my fill of a lot of that stuff. But that doesn't mean that I won't get any. Bougie Eric helped me with this one out of his store. But that's one of the ones that they did a refractor one for some of the early 2000s ones. So it is a jersey. But because it has the design that I like, and these ones were numbered to 250. So because they actually included the refractor design into it, it's a little bit nicer than the standard jersey from the era. So I like it. And still very affordable, very inexpensive. So for those ones I'll go after. Otherwise I'm not interested. It'd have to be an autographed one or something a little bit more substantial to be interesting. So you're saying instead of the people who want to create another third-party grader, we need to make printing companies. Right now, there might be... Look, if you want to be an entrepreneur in the hobby and you think there's room for competition, maybe having the printer that can actually produce some of these cards might... Upper Deck will come knocking to your door like, hey, can you print us the stuff? We'll pay you. Sure. Dave says, suggest a retail price of 93 Finals was $3.99. Yes! Nailed it! Brad, I will look to meet you and shake your hand. Maybe ask for a picture. Good stuff.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
18 packs per box is $72 a box. So yeah, but at $1993, pretty decent. But $72 a box, not too bad.
70 by the pack, so it probably came out of distribution at $50.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So like, and it's one of those things where it was doable, but we also got to remember, we got about 30 years of inflation on that. So
Yeah.
all our production, and it's like, I'll put it to you this way. The analogy that I would use is when we had that, the vinyl record resurgence, right? We had this whole vinyl, you know what they found out when people suddenly started wanting vinyl records again? They're like, the old production lines and the old equipment and everything. Yeah, we sold it because it was in decline. A lot of those production facilities closed, and the
Mhm.
people that knew how to do it, the ones that were experienced or whatever, they retired or they died because it was in decline for a long time. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, vinyl resurgence. Now we need 1 million vinyl records, and I'm like, we don't have that kind of capacity. We like most of these closed up shop years ago, and you just have to look. One of my favorite technologies. It's a very basic technology, by the way. Is Dufex. I love the way that Dufex looks on a card. Well done, Dufex, like the way Pinnacle used to do.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: you can go to Etsy and somebody can give you something that is in Dufex. The technology still exists. However, most of them do not have the ability. If I ask one of these suppliers to do a card in Dufex, some of them can, some of them can't. It's because they simply don't have the in-house capability. They might have to go outside. Says Tops made 4,000 cases, 12 boxes per case. Probably sounds about right. Eric, I'm hoping to get some Poke-E-Man cards graded. Can you help me? Oh, you need so much help. Only the
Anything
cheese
for
string.
you, Eric.
That's right. It's been destroyed. I once worked for a company that bought another small company just to destroy the equipment. Yeah, but that's what I'm getting at. So I'm using that analogy for a reason, because this was a product. You got to remember, we went from like cassettes and everything. They had their moment too, but vinyl records were sitting there. They were in existence for a long time, and then all of a sudden the CD came out, and vinyl records died. Right, but then a couple of years back, maybe 10 years, 15 years back, all of a sudden people are like, hey, this is quaint. And then all of a sudden there was this resurgence. And now when you go to Amazon, you want to get a vinyl record, it's like 40, 50 bucks. Why is it 40, 50 bucks? Because there's only so many printing facilities. Well, now they're charging you a premium for it. It wasn't 40 or 50 bucks. Does it cost 40 or 50 bucks? Not necessarily, but if you want to get enough of it out there, you got to put in the presses, right? You got to press all that vinyl. You got to get the materials and everything. It's the same thing that happened with the technology on a lot of this stuff. That's why I gave the example. Tops, through Bowman and such, they tried to redo Bowman Best Cuts. In the 1990s, Bowman Best Cuts is one of the most beautiful. It's die cut and it's got refractor. It's a beautiful looking card. I have a set of the Atomics in one of my binders here. They tried to redo it. They couldn't do the die cut. So it's just basically like an outline of it. It basically just looked like a dollar store knockoff of the original Bowman Best Cuts. And this is later. We presumably have computers. We have all this technology, and we couldn't replicate something from the 1990s because we didn't have the tech anymore, Brad.
Yeah.
That wasn't a competition issue. That was like, we can't even do it. So no one else can make a certain product. Yep. And sometimes that's a major factor. That's part of the business too, is that if you run the factory, if you don't have enough business to justify it, you get rid of the equipment, you sell off the equipment, or you break it down and recycle it and use something else with it. And then you come back later and go, hey, can you make that thing? Yeah, that machine's gone, man. We'd have to build a new one from scratch. It's like, we don't have it anymore. So
I will just buy a giant 3D printer. It can do anything.
there you go. That'll fix 3D printing will fix the hobby, Brad. It'll fix the hobby.
It prints anything. You can print a house, right?
Nice. So let's wind her down on this one. By the way, great conversation, everybody. That was a good one. That was a lot of fun. We had a lot of there was a lot of meat on that bone to talk through as well. There was a lot of pieces to it. We'll kind of see how things play out. Before we finish, let's touch on two things. I wanted to briefly touch on it. Do you have any opinion? We talked about the O-Pee-Chee Platinum that was going to come out. It has now come out. Have you gotten a chance to see any of it? I've watched some breaks of it. I have opinions, but I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think overall, from what I'm getting feedback over the last day or two, is that people would sooner have the smaller boxes and the less cards and the price point be a lot lower. I don't think the new price point with the bigger boxes is a hit. At $270 or whatever it is a box, I think it's just too much money. So, and I think that is coming from more from the Upper Deck side of things, because I think that's right from Upper Deck to the distributor. That's not us collectors inflating the price and forcing the prices higher. That's not happened yet. So I've only watched one. I think it was GPS Sports do a break, and they opened up a ton, but I watched them for about I don't know, say 15, 20 minutes. And they were open as fast as any breakers can open. One guy still open and stacking the packs. I didn't see anything that was anything exciting for me. So,
Or you don't like the new, what I want to say, like Molten Lava or Inferno. There's like a new version of one
yeah,
of them that's like it looks nice. Like I want to emphasize this. The cards themselves, some of them, look nice enough. And that's always been like a thing with the Peachy Platinum. I actually like the way they look. I think they're interesting. But I just saw like I don't remember I want to say wasn't it like $120 a box like in 2019 or something? Like
oh
3
yeah,
years ago, 4 years ago. Like it was like just over $100 a box, wasn't it? Something like that.
yep, yep,
And you've more than doubled it, and we don't have more than double value here. Like we're
yep.
like the value isn't there. We can't even use the boom inflation. Like we're on the other side of the boom, and the price point is like up here, and it's like I
Yeah.
4 boxes $1,000, man. You can do a lot of amazing things for $1,000. Like that feels rough.
I think I mentioned it right. I've had three stores, people that I know that have product that called me to ask if I wanted to buy any from them.
Mm-hmm.
And we know when we talk about that, there's just been the glut of stuff coming out, and stores are strapped. There's only so much money in the pie right now.
So what you're saying is now is not a good time to announce the release of AEW Metal.
No.
Not yet. By the way, I saw that I want to say on Steel City Collectibles or whatever because they keep having hopeful. From what I understand, at least one of those sites, I want to say Steel City, it might have been a different one. Presumably, it's been moved back to August. And my response, I took a screenshot of that. I sent it to my buddy, and my exact words to him are go, all right, so this is going to be one of two scenarios. Either we're going to have to will our pre-orders to our next of kin, or be cryogenically frozen so that we can ever see this product. That might be the only hope that we ever get a chance to open it.
Yeah.
And he just laughed. And I go, yep, at the rate we're going, we might need, Brad, I need medical science to be able to freeze me until AEW Metal is released in 2478.
Yeah.
I'm sick of hearing the whining about the off-center cuts and QC crap. I get it's a load of money for a box, but every pack pulled card is not pristine. That is true, but I will say I've just watched a couple boxes, and I saw a couple of cards that were cut 90-10. QC not being pristine, I get it, but like 90-10 is almost miscut. It's borderline miscut inside of the box. And I don't know, I haven't tried to return any cards to Upper Deck because I recall it's a bit of an ordeal as well.
We have a lot of people that want written receipts. Sorry, not just the cash register receipt.
Yeah.
They actually want an invoice done because they want to return it. But I think Upper Deck really has been doing a good job with that. Like I'll email it over. I'm doing one tonight for someone that bought a box of Extended. I think he only got one Young Gun out of it. Or anyways,
you should have told him that the trick is to buy more boxes of Extended, Brad. You should have told him. By the way, just out of curiosity, what's the update on Extended? You were at half. Has it moved much?
Half minus a couple.
Brad, is this where we announce that next week in lieu of yourself, we're giving away 6 boxes of Extended?
Yeah. No,
please.
absolutely.
Take them, please. Please. It's like pick a number between 1 and 1. Winner!
Right? Like you always want to be honest, and it's hard to sell something that you think isn't a good product. And it's not. Like the rookie class, young flagship Upper Deck is driven by the power of the Young Gun, which they've done just a phenomenal job to create this. And now you have a product that and they're like, oh no, there's some guys that are going to develop. I'm like, who? Who is going to develop? Really? I don't know.
Yeah. Dave says, graded card, get a box. It's getting close. It's getting close.
I know. It's tough. I'm telling you. That's why with all this stuff and LCS, it's just becoming, it's extremely tough to operate a hobby store, especially a hobby store, an LCS that relies 90% on new product coming through the door and selling it and turning it over. It's just becoming tougher and tougher and tougher.
Sounds fair. So I'll elaborate more on it tomorrow, but I'll just say, and I already made reference to it. I went ham this past week, Brad. I went down a very dark place, very dark rabbit hole. And outside of maybe that one guy who claims that he's a Josh Rosen super collector, and Lord knows why. Outside of this one guy, I may have the greatest Josh Rosen collection creation.
Yeah.
I just laughed and I just sat there like, I've spent more money on dumber things, but this is hilarious and stupid. I look forward to the video. It's gonna be fun. But I was able to get a lot of nice stuff, and I was like, but these are very nice cards. But I was like, oh man. Um, let's put it this way: it's a good cautionary tale for folks that are collecting the current guys in the future. Go, just be clear. There's most guys are going to end up in this boat because from his rookie year, he had over 1,100 autographed cards, Brad. 1,100, and I'm sitting there like, that seems like a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But remember, most of these guys are not going to be like Hall of Famers. They're not going to be perennial Pro Bowlers. You're lucky if several of them remain journeymen. And we're going to see. Our good buddies Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, they're hanging on. They're hanging on to their life to NFL jobs. Not looking good. They may be joining the Josh Rosen PC. We'll see. But I got to be honest, I'm having a lot of fun finding it. I'm like, how much of this stuff can I get? How cheap can I get it? And I feel bad because there's a couple of dealers who clearly have a lot of it. And I almost want to be like, how did you get stuck with this? Like, why do you have so much? Because I look at it and they have like 4-card lots and stuff. And I'm like, you're not getting that. Just like, I'll give you like $20. I'll give you like $20. $20 cash, bro.
Well, it's funny on Neo's video today when he said about reading through the Topps rules and regulations. It's like, yeah, and you got to buy 5 cases of tennis to get your Bowman. You got to buy 5 cases of this. And I'm just thinking, like, if I had to buy all that product, like we couldn't survive. Like, there's just no chance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in our market here with no avenues to sell it. If we have those products that come in, some of the, like Bowman University and, tennis, Topps Heritage Minor League, like we buy that stuff. Nobody comes into the store and buys it from us. Like we might sell 1 box, maybe 2. Right. And then what we do, you end up taking it to a card show and you end up selling it below cost and losing money. So there's always that. Everyone wants allocations, but there's a point where you got to say, is it worth it for allocations? Me and my uncle had a big chat about that this week, and we back and forth. It's like, I know, he goes, no, I know, Brad, you always talk about allocations and how much it means because you get this product, but there's more and more other product that keeps coming out that you don't make any money and you lose money on. Is it actually worth it to get those 4 cases of the cup at the end of the year that you're going to make $300 a box on? Is that still worth it when you're losing X amount of dollars on other? I'm going to try to really keep an eye on that to see if I can come up with some sort of a actual factual based, okay, here it is. Maybe here's every Upper Deck product. This is what it comes out at. This is what the distributor charges. Here's what you're allocated. Here's what you make money. Mm-hmm. I think it'd be cool. I think you're going to see more people do that, actually.
I think that could be very impactful. And yeah, to your point, one of the rules, so to speak, was that, if you're one of the Topps/Fanatics ones, is that you can't, basically, without saying it, they didn't say dealer net, but effectively they were talking about dealer net. They were talking about like effectively selling to other stores to get rid of product, basically. And I was like, well, you just took away one of their ways to actually get rid of it. Because if they just can't move it in their store, like you're asking them to sit on boxes that are going to collect dust.
Yeah, and what do you do? Like, what do you do? You just got to keep lowering until you get to that price point. And then there's a point in certain markets that it just won't sell, right? CFL, like Upper Deck CFL does not sell. We haven't sold a box in the last 4 years, I don't think, at AMG Collectibles.
I think you should make it as a statue as a monument to hubris. And if you ever get an Upper Deck representative to come by, it's like, look at our monument. It's like, why do you have? It's like, because this is all that we can do. We turned it into art.
Yeah, and it's tough. So if you don't have those other avenues and you're limited to sell, then it's tough.
There you go. Fair enough.
Awesome.
All right, sounds good. All right, folks. Pleasure chatting with you as always. Thank you all for the comments. Very good stuff. On your way out, if you could hit the like button, much appreciated. We'll keep you posted on anything regarding scheduling or anything pertaining to the next couple of weeks here. But for now, at least now you know where there's going to be the show that we talked about earlier happening this weekend, and that'll be good. And then maybe we'll report back on that I think the week after next week, and then we'll kind of see how the scheduling plays out, and then we'll keep you posted from there.
yeah, we'll have PSA Canada. We'll have a full setup booth taking submissions all weekend long. So excited to see everyone.
Good stuff. All right, folks, enjoy the rest of your Thursday evening. We'll chat with you a little bit later on, so keep an eye. Otherwise, like I said, if you could hit the like button on the way out and subscribe, that is always much appreciated. Have yourselves a good evening, and we'll talk later.